Hey guys, so welcome to lesson 4 of our tasks API. Today we're going to be enhancing it with user association, right? So we're going to be looking at basically upgrading or extending our API to allow for users to be added to the app. So the main objection would basically be to just enhance it again to add like a personalized touch to it. This introduces some level of security and makes it a little bit more scalable. It also serves the foundation for adding like user authentication, so being able to log in as users and that sort of thing. So you may be asking yourself, why are we adding users to our tasks? So again, user association like enables for like a personalized sort of like touch, so you can actually view your own tasks as a user. You can make it a bit more scalable, so we can handle multiple users logging in and viewing their own tasks, and it just makes it more secure because you can then view your data only. This also serves like the foundation for like what we call user authentication, so being able to log in, that sort of thing. The key concepts we'll cover here is basically database enhancements, so being able to create a new table to your database and also updates the tasks table to now have like a link or like a relation to a user. So basically a task should like be associated to a user. What we'll also be looking at is updating our API endpoints, so being able to update the code so that it can cater for users on a task level, and also being able to update and remove that sort of thing. Testing would be the same. We'll just be testing our endpoints, making sure we can create users and then create tasks as users and that sort of thing. The project architecture would be as follows. We would have like user requests, so we can make requests from our backend, and then we can also view the tasks from our backend, and then our database will basically be like the center point for which you can view tasks and users. And the key concepts or the key features would be we're adding a user table, and each user would have an ID, a username, an email, and a password. The email would be unique, and the task should have an update with the user ID, which would be like a reference for who the user was that now created the new task. And so we are going to update our endpoints as well, so that we now fetch tasks based on who the user is, that sort of thing. Um, Looking at the table, or this is like how it's going to look like, very rough or like sort of like high level. So we have a users table again, which has a username, an email, and a password, and some date time fields. And then every user will have many tasks, so you have the ability as user to create multiple tasks or have many tasks, and then each task will include your reference or your details, as in you're the owner of this task, you've created the task, have a title, description, and status as well, which is not here. Um, the steps we'll take is again setting up the users, updating the task table, and then updating our API so that we can cater for users. And then we'll test it as well. So the technologies is exactly the same. So Drizzle ORM, SQLITE, Postman. Learning outcomes would be adding sort of associations to our API. So in this case, we're basically adding users to tasks, linking the two together so we can be able to say, okay, cool, for this task, who is the user that sort of created it? And being able to CRUD the same, but for users as well. And yeah, again, we will be looking at this. We'll dive into the code, but the next part would be user authentication. So thanks. Let's dive into the code. Cool. Let's have a look at the code. So the first thing we need to do is, since we're working with relations, we have to add a piece of code which basically allows us to add like foreign keys in our database. So let's add this piece of code here. It enables foreign key constraints. And then what we need to do is we need to go to our schema, and then we're going to basically now add the user's association, right? So we're going to do this. So that's actually helping me, Copilot. So I've got the users table, ID, name, email. Let me maybe, what's it? Username, and then let me say username. Cool. Uh, cool. Username, ID, username, email, password. That's fine. And then now I basically need to say I need to update the tasks to have a user ID, right? Now let me just double make sure my code is fine. So here I've got to do this. Let me do this. Let me just update this like this. Excuse me. Okay, so then task ID, primary key, title, description, status, and then the user ID will be an integer. User ID. This will be a reference to the users table, and it will be assigned on the user.id. So the link will be created by the user, and we have to make sure it's not null. Okay, cool. That's fine. And after we do this, we need to run our generate command so that it can generate our table. But let's go to our database, local db local. We have to create this, so we have to go here and do .SQLITE db local. Okay. Afterwards, what we're going to do now is we're going to basically run the commands to initialize our database. So on db generate, and then it should generate our database with our tables if there's no errors whatsoever. Cool. That looks fine. Database db local. Okay, well, it's still generating. There we go. And then let me do db migrate. Cool. Okay, that's looking fine. So that's good. Let me go here. I'll see this. There will be users table. Okay, cool. These two tables got added here, which is fine. And that's good. That's working as expected. So what I will do is I will just go to this, open this database, and I will just see that we have tasks and now we have users. Perfect. So what we'll do now is we can actually test this using our it's called npx Drizzlekit Studio. npx what npm run. So I'll basically pause this. I'll start the server. I'll pause it. npm run studio, and I'll show you guys how the studio looks. So the studio is the playground that we saw in the previous video, where we can basically interact with our database directly. So we can add tasks, add users, and once we do that, we should be able to then go to our API and implement the routes. So um, let's get. I'm starting the server. Once the server runs, I should be able to pause it, show you guys how it looks, and then come back and write the API code. So yeah, let's do that. Cool. Welcome to Drizzlekit Studio. So yeah, this is again that same window that you've seen before. Essentially, here's where we basically have access to our database. So here we can add our tasks, we can add our users as well. So essentially, we want to play around with it so that we can test our database, right? So let's go to users, and the order changes slightly. So we need users first. So let's go John Doe, enter, and then just do John Doe at gmail.com, enter. And password for now, the passwords are not secure. So I'll just leave it like that, and then I will say save. Cool. So now we've got a user named John Doe, and then let's add another user actually. So let's do Jane Doe. Jane Doe. Jane Doe. gmail.com. Password 2. And let's make the kid Mike Janet Doe. Janet Doe. I've never heard of Janet Doe, but maybe there is Janet Doe. I think my spelling of Janet is wrong, but it's okay. Janet Doe at gmail.com. So we have the Doe family. Password 3. Okay, cool. So we've got 3 Okay, I created Jane Doe twice. This was a mistake, and luckily we were able to catch this error. So, I mean, we essentially shouldn't have like duplicate users. So this is a typo or mistake on our side. We can correct it on our ORM side. Um, yeah, we'll fix this issue. Okay, so we've got like four users, but it's basically three, but let's just say four for now because there's four users here. And then now we can create a tasks. So let's go here and let's add a task. Let's say Janet task. So I'm creating a task as Janet description. And then now the ID here I will use. Okay, I think I know it should be ID 4. 3 should be Janet task. So let me save that. Okay, there we go. So we've got Janet here. There we go. Janet Doe. Okay. So now we have a task we've created that's associated to a user called Janet, and here's Janet's details as well. So as you can see, our sort of like table, our references sort of adding up. So we can do, let's add another task and let's call it John task. And then we can just do John description. And then here I'll put 1 because John is the user with ID 1, I think. Cool, we have John Doe. Cool, as you can see. So on this level, we can actually now add tasks and we can then link them to users and be like, this task belongs to this user. So again, what we wanted to do, let me create one for Jane. So let me just do Jane task. And now just do Jane description. And I'll put ID 2 and save that. And there we go. So we have Jane task. So we have 4 tasks and then same CRUD work. So we should be able to select, and let's say we want to remove Jane. And so let's remove Jane's task. Jane's task gets removed. There's 3 more tasks remaining. 1 for Janet. Okay, I think I added 2 again for Jane. Something weird is happening here. I think I'm just pressing this like twice instead of once. But let's remove the other Jane task as well. Cool. So now we have 2 tasks left: Janet's task and John's task. So again, as you can see, we're now able to have tasks associated to users. So the next part essentially would be us writing our API to then perform all of this. So I'm looking forward to that. Let's jump back into the code. Cool. So we are going to now look back into the code. What we need to do now is we need to update our API so that we can actually write logic to interact with the users. So right now everything is just on the task level, and we just need to make sure that we can actually update this to reflect the users. So um, I've got some code here. What I'll do is I'll create first the user out. So being able to create a user, update the user, fetch all users, that sort of thing. So what we'll do first is let's do this. Copy this here. Let me just do app.get users. Close this. Cool. And that basically fetches from our users table. We have to update this. Okay, so that should basically fetch all of our users from our table. Um, so I'll test this now. Let me just do curl http localhost. Is my server running? My server's not running. Okay, cool. Yarn dev. But yeah, essentially, once our server runs, this should be able to point to the user's endpoint, and then I'll do the same thing to get users. Okay, cool. That's nice. So that's basically get a particular user. So all this does is it takes in a user ID in the params, and then it basically says, okay, cool. Go to the database, select all from users. So find a user that matches the user that we're giving, user ID that matches what we're giving it here. So when we find the matching user, we return the user here. We need to now create a user. That's cool. So what this then does, this is just creating a post request to our user's endpoint. So this is basically being able to create the user. We take in a username, email, password, and then we return the user. I think we need to update the user. We need to update. It's fine. Let's do delete user. It's fine. So what this then does, this takes in a user. It takes in the user ID in the params, and then it again goes to the database and matches the user's ID with the user ID that we're giving it in. So find the matching user ID. Once we find the matching user ID, we then remove the user. We need to update it. So what this then does, this basically does the same thing. It takes the user ID that you're giving it, goes to our database and says, okay, cool. I want to basically update our users with the new username, new email, and new password. And we want to match based on the ID again and return the updated one. So now on the task level, let's just test the get all users. We should have the 3 users from our database. So the port is 5173. So let me do 5173. Oh yeah, it's 5173 slash users. So this will be hello world users. There we go. So can you see we have, there we go. So we have John Doe, we have Jane Doe, and we have Janet. That's cool. So our users is working. And now we need to update our tasks endpoint so that it can match with the user ID. So what I'll do is let me fetch all tasks associated to a user ID. So I'm gonna update this. So I'm gonna update all tasks route with the following, right? So what I have is this. Now what this piece of code does is it fetches all the tasks, but now it takes in a user ID in the query param. So, and then if there is a user ID that we want to query the tasks for, we're basically going to go to the task table and we're going to say, find me all the tasks where the task user ID matches the user ID that we're giving it. And if there is, it's going to return those tasks list. If there is nothing, it will just say that there's no task found for that user. Otherwise, we get all the tasks. So let me do that. Let me just do this. Say that. Go ahead. Okay, cool. So we're testing our API now. The first request will make use to the tasks endpoint. So we just want to get all tasks. What you can do is we can limit the task based on user ID. So let's say user ID 3, we should only get Janet's tasks, and then user ID 1, we should get John's task, which is good. And then we can get all users as well. So here just returns all the users. As you can see, I've got a couple of users. I can delete user 4. Let me go delete users 4. I want to delete Jane's other email, and then when I get users, I should have 3 users: John, Jane, and Janet. That's good. What I want to do is I want to create a task. Okay, let me create a task. Let me do 1. Let me do John, added a task. John. Internal server error. Uh, what is the issue here? Not now. User ID. Let me see. User ID 1. I think it expects us to be. Okay, the reason why it's not working is because I didn't finish this. I've got to include the user ID as well. So, okay, I've got code here. Let me just do this. So now when we're creating a task, we need to pull in the user ID. That's why it's not working. Okay, cool. Get the user ID, and then what I'll do is, oops. Um, so now when we're creating a task, we need to pull in the user ID. If the user ID doesn't exist, we're gonna give an error. If the user ID does exist, we proceed with creating the task. Okay, let's do that. Type it again. Perfect. So yeah, now we can actually add users and stuff. So yeah, we've done our API now. Our users, our tasks now is there is a reference to users. So let's go check every tasks. See tasks. This should 1, 2, 3. Every task has a user ID. What I can do is let me create another task. And let me say user ID 3. Right, there is a user ID 3. Yeah, look, there is like some validations we can add. Obviously, you've seen there's quite a few extra places, so you're more than welcome to comment and just to make suggestions on how we can improve it. The usernames, the emails shouldn't be duplicates. We need like unique email addresses. We need to be able to do some error handling. Password is kind of like visible. You can see all users' passwords as you may have seen. So there's a few bad practices. This is just more of like a learning. We're gonna improve and make it secure. You know, all of that stuff. So this is our API. I don't think I've missed anything. Can I delete the task? Um, Let me delete the task. Don't know if this will work. Okay, delete the task and let me get all tasks. I deleted task number 1, so let me get all tasks. So I should have 2, 5, 6. Okay, looks like it's working. Let me delete task number 2 just to make sure. And then let me get all tasks. Okay, 2 is gone. Perfect. So we are able to CRUD our application. So which is good. So thanks for joining. The next episode, maybe we'll do some cleanup. But I'll leave that open. Maybe you guys can help with suggesting and any sort of changes we can make. But yeah, we'll be looking at upgrading this further, adding some like authentication, logging in, securing the password, that sort of thing. So exciting.